Well, good afternoon and welcome to this virtual chat. I'm Kathie Nelson and my special guest today is Nikki Kuehl. We are going to talk about hormonal imbalances. Are they keeping you hostage, and some things you can do to get back in the driver's seat. As Nikki and I were chatting as we were getting ready for the call, we talked about the fact that we really don't like that word imbalance. One of the things about traversing every season of our life is that, our bodies change, but they are so fabulously resilient and really designed to heal themselves, and how passionate we both are about nutrition as part of that program. But we want to talk today just about a couple of things that are the stumbling blocks, as well as some things you can do about it. Let me tell you real quick. I'm Kathie Nelson. Those of you that don't know me, I'm a business mentor, business coach in the Portland area. I have been for about 20 plus years. But finding that there are some things that impact us as women through these seasons of our lives that keep us from fully living and fully engaging in life. And so my intent through interviewing Nikki and a couple of other specialists over the next couple of weeks is really to bring you some information that you can use, so that for those of you who are already in pursuit of looking for more information, you may already have some solutions, but you're just looking for verification and even some additional resources, that what we talk about today can help you fill some missing pieces, that there may be some parts here that would serve you well. And with that, I just want to introduce Nikki. And Nikki Kuehl is a family practitioner, a nurse practitioner with family practice. I'll let her tell you a little bit about her background as we begin to talk about and have a dialogue about some of the issues that are addressing women today. So Nikki, let me hand it over to you.
Hi, my name is Nikki Kuehl. I'm a family nurse practitioner. I also live in the Portland area. I have been a nurse practitioner for a few years, but I have been interested in studying nutrition and its effect on our health for probably a good 20 years. And now I'm working on getting my certification in functional medicine. And for those of you who aren't familiar with functional medicine, it's really focused on a holistic approach to balancing our health, and we use a lot of lifestyle interventions, and with a big focus on nutrition for healing our bodies.
That's awesome, Nikki. I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name, Kuehl.
Oh, that's okay.
I think it's cool to be you, so
Yeah.
I assigned that as you.
I didn't even notice.
Well, what's been so interesting, Nikki, as we have gotten acquainted in these last few weeks, is just hearing how you've integrated your that philosophy about nutrition and functional medicine as you're a nurse practitioner dealing in the family practice arena, and then specifically with women who may be experiencing different changes. So talk to us a little bit about some of those benchmark changes that we do encounter, and some of the side effects, or the effects of them. They're not side effects, they're byproducts.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, as women, two of the main hormones that have a big impact on our body are estrogen and progesterone. Those come from our ovaries. And starting at about it can be starting at age 35, sometimes not until age 40, we start seeing a decrease in those levels in our body. And it really affects everything, because our body is just such an interconnected system of organs and tissues and pathways. These hormones affect everything from our muscle mass, to how we accumulate fat, to our energy, memory, our cardiac health. So really, we start seeing a decrease in these hormone levels, which is a totally natural thing to happen. But then we get these sort of, our body's response is sometimes we'll just notice things like decreased energy or brain fog, or maybe we're not able to lose weight as easily as we have in the past.
That's right. Well, and Nikki, when we were talking earlier, we talked about the fact that some of this seems to be emphasized by the toxicity in our systems, as well as the stress that we have. That because of the increased stress that most of it's invisible to us. It's just the impact of our culture and lifestyle has actually caused what would naturally have occurred as our body shifts through the seasons from increase or decrease in progesterone or estrogen, that the organs that would ordinarily pick that up are under such stress that they don't really respond as well. So some of the impact of that transition is just, it's more increased, more marked. And I think for those of you that came through the invite to this event, when I was in my 40s asking my own OBGYN about this, she just was like, you can get used to it, Kathie. It's only going to get worse. There's nothing you can do about this. Well, I found a distinct difference in, of course, this last decade and the last 5 years that I actually feel healthier and better. But realizing that there's still more. There's still more that I would like to know for myself, as well as I know that a lot of women I talk to that are in that leadership role or in the seasons of life where they're asking those questions. They found some resources, but more information is always helpful. So talk to us a little bit about, we talked a little bit about some things, the issues that arise from the changes. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, or if you want to talk about some things women might be looking at as ways to address some of those concerns.
Sure. Well, we can do that together. So one of the things that women may notice is a decrease in energy, and bringing up the stress thing is really important because our body secretes stress hormones. And usually, when we were created, those hormones were meant to be for when we were in serious danger, like if we were being chased by a wild animal or something. Well, now we're constantly having stress, and it's just things like, we're always connected. We're always, we have our electronics, we have our phones, we're always, there's always this information coming in. We keep our schedules just packed. And so, we're secreting these hormones constantly. So when it comes time for this shift, when our estrogen and progesterone go down, we've already been using our energy hormones, and a lot of us are in a state of fatigue. So we're not going to get that bump that we probably would have, if we weren't overstressed and overtoxic.
Yeah.
So, as far as energy goes, nutrition is the foundation. You want to be eating a diet that not only nourishes your body, but allows your body to detox and to, process these, toxins that we get from our environment and from the not so good foods that we eat. So, things just like focusing on a really clean diet, eating really high quality protein, avoiding highly processed foods, avoiding the white sugar and, highly processed carbohydrates, and getting lots of good protein and healthy fats and fresh vegetables and fresh fruits is really going to be your foundation for creating more energy, because your body is going to heal.
So talk to me for a second about some quick fixes that we tend to do, and what we might substitute that with. For example, if we are used to grabbing a Coke at the store or kind of binging on coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I hear both pros and cons of coffee, being a coffee drinker myself.
Yeah.
What are some things that we might have as additional thoughts or considerations about that?
Yeah, so stimulants can definitely be harmful. And, sometimes we need to totally avoid caffeine, or sometimes we just need to pick a healthier version of it. Obviously we don't want to be having things like rock stars or energy drinks, and, the coffee drinks that are also packed full of sugar and other stuff that they put into the coffee drinks. Instead, maybe choosing like some green tea. It has a lot of antioxidants in it. Or, just even drinking more water. And, we do find that if we avoid all the processed foods and we increase all of these really healthy living foods, that we're just going to have more natural energy.
Okay, great, great. Well, I was thinking about the comment that I might hear from someone who says, "But you don't know, Kathy, that's how I get through my afternoon," or,
Hmm.
I get up to get to the gym, or I get up to get the kids to school, or I get up to get to work, and I go, 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 and then it kind of hits me. You don't know what I need. I need that pick me up in order to make it. But I also have experienced that selective fasting or taking a break from,
Yes.
certain foods, taking a break from sugars, taking a break from caffeine,
Mhm.
taking a break from um, processed foods, or bread for a little bit, and just
Mhm.
noticing how quickly my system is responds to that.
Sure. I mean, another big component to energy is protein and making sure that we're getting high quality protein throughout our day. So we call that protein pacing. So we want to start by having a dose of protein first thing in the morning, protein with our breakfast, protein with our snacks, protein with every meal, and then protein again before bed. Protein increases our metabolism. It triggers our body to burn fat, but it also gives us an energy boost. So good quality protein is great, and having it all throughout the day is a great way to increase our energy.
So talk to me about some alternatives to that. We talked about the fact that we are both strong believers in nutrition. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about other things as well. But right now, to talk about the protein, if people aren't eating eggs or chicken or beef, um, what do you select? What do you suggest when they are looking at other protein supplements? What are some qualifications or standards that you might
Sure.
have them read the label, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So if basically you're going to have either a whey-based protein or a plant-based protein when you're looking at supplements. If you're looking at um, these supplements, you basically want the shortest ingredient list possible, really. Um, if you're looking for a really high quality whey-based protein, it would be great if it was undenatured, because in that type of processing, um, it's just easier for your body to absorb. So we want a good absorption of the protein. And then if you're looking at plant-based proteins, I would suggest avoiding soy. And then we want to look for things that are like pea protein and the brown rice protein are going to be the best absorption in your body.
Great, great. That's helpful. And Nikki and I were chatting again in the pre-call that we could talk about this all day. I mean, these are topics
Mhm.
that really you can dig in. They're pretty rich. And I want to encourage you that if you've been referred this video or watching it live, is that you're chatting with a person who either referred it or invited you about their experience and why they would have shared this with you. But thank you, Nikki, for that. And we'll give you some information to even be in touch with Nikki as well. So talk to me a little bit. So we talked a little bit about energy, the way your energy is impacted as throughout
Mhm.
those seasons of life. What else? Let's talk about some other things that are common on our minds about, okay, this is an issue that's been sneaking up in my background, whether it's stress and it might, maybe stress
Mhm.
is our next. What do we do about stress?
Yeah, so for stress, stress reduction is a big deal. So, and sometimes we just can't avoid it. I mean, sometimes we can't necessarily reduce the stress in our life, but we can change the way that our body responds to the stress. So when we're blasted with stress, our body pumps out cortisol. Cortisol is that fight or flight hormone. Well, we're not doing that. We're just pumping cortisol into our system, and a few different things happen. But the main one is that we start accumulating this fat tire around the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So the cortisol makes it actually sends out a signal that attracts the fat cells and causes them to sort of clump together and all accumulate in that midsection. So things that we can do to decrease cortisol is, relaxation, um, using relaxation techniques, breathing techniques, breathing exercises, meditation, but also we look at these botanicals that are called adaptogens. And adaptogens are herbs, and there's a pretty good variety of them out there that are available. And the way that they work is they buffer the stress and they help our body slow down that cortisol production. And a lot of times these will come in like, a tea or something that you could drink.
That's good. That's good to know. Well, and we, Nikki and I both are part of we have access to superfoods that are packed with adaptogens, so that we have personal experience with really getting that in our bodies and seeing the difference of that. There are sources available in the market. But boy, what a game changer that can be to help your cells receive the nutrition as well as help your body adapt to stress in general and give you energy as well. I noticed that they are vital to that.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you about that tire in the middle, your muffin top. What I noticed, I've been learning about cortisol for probably a decade now, but what I see is that some of the middle, it seems to be impacted by some of our food sources. So you can get your stress down, you can get your fitness up, you can begin to have a much leaner diet, but because that is such a stubborn place to lose, that there are some kind of foods or things in the store that we want to make sure that we're staying away from as well. Can you speak to that for a minute?
Sure. White flour and white sugar are the big ones, with sugar probably being, the number one culprit. But carbs, another thing that happens with this transition in our hormones is we become so much more sensitive to carbohydrates, and they just kind of stick to us in that area. And especially if we're trying to lose weight, if we're just wanting to maintain weight, we can cut down. But sometimes if we're trying to lose weight, we really have to get those carbs out. And I am not a fan of the low carb diet or any of those things, but just from my experience working with women and seeing how sensitive some women are to this, it's just something to take note of and to pay attention to when you're making changes in your diet and just experimenting with it a little bit. How many carbs can you really tolerate? You might be surprised how little it is. That's
just a great measure. And I've only recently learned about the carb sensitivity and sugar sensitivity that can happen throughout those seasons. So being able to count those, I've not really been a carb counter per se, but paying attention to when the source and then the number. But thank you for that. So we've talked about stress, we've talked about energy, which seems to lag, and the things we do to cope with stress, which sometimes stress causes us to those addictions, what we self-soothe, whether it's alcohol, whether it's binge TV watching, whether it's whatever that is, sleep, even, this massive sleep. But then the flip side of the sleep is that there are times that it's really difficult to sleep. You have some suggestions about that, when sleep becomes an issue, I can't sleep, insomnia might be another way to say that.
Yeah. So this definitely becomes an issue, and also because a lot of times we'll start having some hot flashes at night too, which interrupt our sleep. So there's that added into it. So of course, all of this good nutrition and detoxification that we're talking about is going to help with sleep. So that is the foundation. Other things are really good sleep hygiene. And if you've never heard of sleep hygiene, these are things like setting up a routine and getting yourself into relaxation mode, starting an hour or two before your bedtime. So dimming the lights, turning off the electronics, no loud noises. You don't want any screens, so no screen time. No Kindles, no phones, no TVs, no laptops. You really want to create an environment that's going to be really soothing. And, maybe have some warm tea, but also avoiding things like caffeine. If you're going to have caffeine, maybe only have it in the morning. Don't have that afternoon coffee. And then melatonin. Melatonin is great for a lot of people for sleep. So, and that's, a supplement that a lot of us are using. And another benefit to melatonin that can help us with memory. So.
Oh, that's good. Good to know. Well, and again, like I was mentioning earlier, we can kind of go deeper into each one of these topics. And I realized I wanted to keep us at about 30 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So, Nikki, I think you talking about the 5 things we can think about will actually spur another level of conversation. So why don't you give us those quick description of what you talked about earlier?
Yeah, so the first thing is just supercharging your nutrition. So cutting out the processed stuff and really focusing on high quality protein, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and then, cutting down on the carbs. And then, blasting our belly fat through is the second thing, and that's through reducing our stress, reducing our cortisol production. We can do that by using adaptogens and protein pacing. The third thing, and we actually haven't even really touched on this, is that fasting is your friend. So we can do fasts for 1 or 2 days that where we're not eating, where we're drinking fluids and we're drinking things that give us some support for detoxification. And what this does is it boosts our immune system. It helps us burn fat, and it helps us increase something called human growth hormone, which helps us hold on to that lean muscle that we need as we age. And fasting will reset your energy as well. So lots of benefits to fasting. So we could probably do a whole
I was
show.
going to say, let's bookmark that topic, because I love that title, Fasting is Your Friend. And I'm seeing it happen. We talk about, you and I both do intermittent fasting regularly, but also even be able to fast from different food groups that might help you self-diagnose is one thing, just be able to notice you're on. And I, for one, I'm a big proponent of paying attention to what your body is telling you. Your body can tell you a lot of things about what's happening. But let's bookmark that for a future topic.
Yes. We could talk for a whole 30 minutes on fasting at least. And then meditate for mood swings. The decrease in estrogen and progesterone definitely affects the neurons in our brain and can, lead to depression and mood swings. And studies have shown that even 10 to 20 minutes of meditation every day can help restore that brain function and balance our central nervous system. So meditation, very useful for brain health. And then number 5 is, improving our memory. And one thing that really impacts the memory when we start going through these changes is high carbohydrate foods and the foods with a high glycemic index. So that once again, those carbs are coming in and, infecting us in ways that we might not have known. So, but some things that we can add to help our memory is fish oil, green tea, melatonin, and healthy fats. Things like avocados and coconut oil are fantastic for brain health.
That's great. It's great to know. I was almost get me off on another tangent there, but and for those of you that are watching the video in replay or even on the call now, there are times that the meditation phrase or that time to slow down and pause and reflect. I know that in sales and marketing and business leadership, they refer to a power hour or a power period. I'm suggesting that in whatever framework you disconnect yourself to pray, to think good thoughts, to pause and even affirm who you are in the world, what you bring to the world, the gifts that you bring, all of those things will impact and will show up in every area of your life, all your relationships, everything you do. But even to hear you talk about how that actually impacts your memory in a way, in addition to sleep. I know sleep also helps your memory. But just to affirm that if you're not doing it now, when you might incorporate a 10 to 20 minute window to pause and breathe in your life. So Nikki, we're getting close to a wrap up. Let me think about the question I want to ask you, knowing that that our bodies really want to heal themselves, and they are created to run efficiently, and they actually are pretty forgiving when we begin to take some action. What are some action items that you might suggest to people to take after they get off this call in terms of those 5 things you shared?
I think just doing a good self-evaluation in all of these areas, taking a look at what you're putting into your body, what are maybe some small changes that you can make. Maybe there's one thing that you could cut out, or one good thing that you could add. How are your stress levels, and is there anything that you can do to reduce those? How is your mood? How is your memory? How is your sleep quality? I would just say kind of just going through and just doing a self-evaluation and seeing, where you might need some help. And then I would just reach out to the person who referred you, to this interview and see if they, could help you find or connect you with some solutions.
That's a great way to say that, Nikki. Thank you so much. I appreciate the fact about self-evaluation because right, any one of us can take stock and make some choices in our belief system, our mindset, as well as our ability to take action in these areas. We are not subject to, just like I shared earlier that, or maybe I didn't share it on the call, but my OBGYN told me at 40 that you just get to expect to looking forward to more of this. And I began thinking then, how can that be? How can that be? I tend to want to challenge when I'm told that I have to be a certain way. I want to challenge that to be the thing that is on my heart to be. So even at this age, now that I'm in my 50s, to be able to say, you know what, I've seen the difference nutrition can make, but I can also see the difference that mindset makes, belief systems, and even able to take a small step of action in any of those areas. So for those of you that are on the call that are watching the video, I just encourage you to take an assessment, scale 0 to 5. Where would you like to see more energy, more mental capacity, less stress, those kind of things, where you can actually take an action and begin to see those areas of your life impacted. And again, to echo Nikki, to reach out to the person who invited you to the call, ask their story, ask what they're using, some solutions. Like I say, there are a lot of opportunities and information as well as great solutions out in the marketplace. But there may be some that we can add value and by sharing and introducing you as well. So we're going to have some time for some Q&A, but I'm going to stop the recording for our viewing audience just for confidentiality and just for specificity as well. But I want to stop and pause by thanking Nikki for your time. Thank you so much, Nikki. And Nikki Kuehl can be reached to the Providence Systems, but why don't you tell potentially what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Nikki, if they have other questions?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much for having me. So much fun. And I could talk about this for days. So if you have any questions, I would love to talk to you. Feel free to find me on Facebook. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me, is send me a message on Facebook.
Right.
And
yeah. That's perfect. Yeah. Well, what I'll do is for those of you that are watching the video, in the notes of the video, you'll have Nikki's contact information as well. Nikki Kuehl. Find her on Facebook. Thank you so much. I'm Kathie Nelson signing off from our recording today. I can also be found on Facebook, but you can also reach out to me at Kathie@kathienelson.com, Kathie @kathienelson.com. Blessings on your day.